Today we're breaking down my editing workflow that I've developed over the course of 6 years of being a documentary filmmaker and editor. I know organization of footage and projects is not a sexy topic compared to some of the other filmmaking topics out there, but having these systems in place, having a proper dialed editing workflow, especially as you start getting on bigger and bigger projects, is only going to pay dividends. I see it as being similar to having a clean workspace or a clean garage. Sure, you can still build DIY projects with a messy, chaotic workspace, but odds are you're going to be wasting a lot of energy and time looking for that hammer or that set of screws that you placed somewhere the other week, and it's going to drain you of energy and take away from the creative process. I'm going to cover that middle ground between having all your footage saved on a hard drive all the way to having everything cataloged and organized in your project so that you're ready to hit the ground running on your first rough cut. The template I'm using for this video, I've actually made available for free on my Patreon. You just have to head there in the description, join for free, and you'll be able to download it. In that free download, there's a file and folder structure you can use for offloading all your data and keeping track of all your assets, as well as a Davinci Resolve project that'll help you stay organized and follow a similar workflow that I'm using in this video. The footage I'm going to be using today is from my most recent feature documentary that I actually released on my channel last week called Mountain Turks. So if you're curious about some of my work, feel free to head to my channel and check out the film. I'd love your support and I'd love to hear what you think. All right, let's dive into Davinci Resolve and start working on our documentary. When you import my project template, you should see it show up with this thumbnail. I've gone ahead and duplicated it into this project here. So we'll open that up. So first things first, let's break down this project structure. So we've got timelines, footage, graphics, music, sound effects, and exports. Now this is designed for larger projects. It might seem like a bit overkill if you're working on something that's quick turnaround or something that you've shot in a day. This is more so meant for multi-day shoots, things that are taking, more than a week to shoot and edit, that sort of thing. But you can also take this this project and modify it to your liking by just deleting some folders and making your own. So first, let's start with footage. This is where everything's obviously going to start. You've offloaded all your footage into your day-by-day folders based on the file folder template in this download, and now you drag things into your project. So Camera Originals, this is where all of your day-by-day footage is going to live. I usually have it set up with a date, a day number, and then a little bit of a description of what I shot that day, just the main headline of what I shot that day. Transcoded footage, this is where, depending on how powerful your computer is, you might want to create proxies. That's where they would live. Audio, this is anything recorded separately, whether it's just wild sound, maybe it's you just threw a lav mic on someone, but it doesn't really link up to any specific footage. Just creating your own sound library, essentially. Stock footage, photos, any voiceover, and then reference videos for whether it's influences or whatever inspiration, whatever you feel like you want to drag in there. So once we have our Camera Originals folder populated with all of our raw data, we'll head over to the timelines. And this is where I have it separated into edits and selects. So edits are going to be your actual full edits, whether that's just your first rough cut or your initial assembly, all the way up to your final film that's being picture locked, which just means it's going out for color grading, sound design, all that. And then you can keep track of all of your current and older versions in here as well. Then we also have the selects folder. So selects are for when you're going through all your clips and you're essentially cutting down all of the stuff you don't want to use, that you don't plan on using, and you're also sorting your footage into different themes, different ideas, different bins that will allow you at some point or another to navigate through and quickly find that clip that you're thinking of in your brain. So the way I've broken it down is I've got dailies, interviews, and catalog selects. I personally am not like a bin editor. I don't like staying in these bins here. I much prefer to be on timelines. I just find it way more visual. I can just scrub through really easily. I can see everything in its place. I don't really like just scrubbing through thumbnails. I know that's a certain style people like. I stick to timelines. If it's not for you, it's not for you, but that's how my workflow works. So I've got my dailies timelines. This is where I'm basically mimicking the structure in the camera originals footage. Essentially, dailies, if you don't know, are just all of your footage shot from that day dragged onto a timeline. Some people call these string outs as well. And that way you get all your footage in front of you. So my first step is I will create dailies for each one of the days that I've shot. Once I've dragged my footage from my camera originals folder onto a dailies timeline, what I like to do is I like to color every single clip to like a beige color, something that's not very colorful and kind of disappears into the background. And then from there, I use color coding to decide on what type of clip is, what the content is in the clip. And I use that to categorize and sort my footage so that there's a bit of rhyme or reason to how I'm storing the footage, and I can find things a lot quicker that way. So my process generally happens in 2 steps. If I'm not familiar with the footage or it's been a while since I've looked at the footage, what I'll do is I'll go through and just cut up all the clips that I plan on using, but I won't color code them yet. I just want to re-familiarize myself with all the clips. I want to understand what was shot that day, and I want to start pulling out what I think is going to be usable. The bar for this is pretty low. Like, I'm not looking for like all-star stuff. I'm just looking for anything that's usable. So it's not super shaky. It's not totally out of focus. Anything that I think may end up in the film, even if I think that the percentage is like a 1% chance, it'll still make it through this process. So that's step 1 if I'm unfamiliar, is to go through and pull selects of what I think I'll actually use. If I'm familiar with the footage, I just shot it recently, I know the content of the footage, I'll just move on to step 2. Step 2 is where I decide what categories the footage I think will belong into, what kind of bins I can sort the footage in. So for example, for this shoot, I know that it was Eric, the main character of Mountain Turks, and his family skiing across a mountain range from one Turk or mountain hut to another. And most of the day is spent skiing with some maintenance happening, some testing of equipment, and then some, the odd landscape shot or the odd moment where they're sitting taking a break. So I've decided to split this up into 4 categories of footage. I've got orange, which is associated with any talking, any dialogue, anything that might add to the story. They're having a conversation, they're saying something about where they're going, any audio that might add to the story. I've got blue, which is anytime they're just sitting around faffing with gear, sorting things out. They're not actually skiing, but they're just hanging out. It's more like lifestyle, I guess you could call it. Then I've got this teal color, which is used for skiing shots. Anytime they're in the landscape and they're actually skiing, that's going to be teal. And then I've got just green as pure landscape shots. No skiers, nothing. It's just scenics of mountains. To make it even easier on myself, this is a sweet tip that I learned a while ago. Map your colors to your numbers or something easy on your keyboard, and then you can go through and quickly analyze and sort things into your bins. And then here's the key crucial tip, and this is the next tip once you've done all of this cataloging and categorizing of your footage. There's a sweet trick you can do in Resolve where you can go up to timeline, select clips with color, and select a color. And that's only going to select those clips in this timeline. So I can select those, and then I'm going to actually go to the next tier of my selects process. The reason why I like to do this tiered setup to my selects is that it gives me breadcrumbs. So each time I'm pulling more and more selects, I'm losing more and more of the footage I think I don't want at the time. I'll end up with a very specific timeline that has like only the best stuff. But if one of those clips in there is a really good clip, it was my favorite for whatever reason, but it's not quite right, I can kind of walk back through the tiers and find all the clips that were surrounding it and go through those and see if there's anything similar to that clip that I actually like more. Because it's hard to tell exactly what you're going to like in your final edit. You don't really know what you're going to use and what you're not going to use yet. So I just like that. It gives me a bit of like you could almost think of it as like a browser history sort of thing where you can go back and search through it. So now what I'll do is I will select all of the orange clips with my handy dandy trick, copy those, and we're going to hop out of our dailies section and we're going to hop into our cataloged selects. And then I've got B-roll selects. So this is anything that's not an interview, essentially. Go in there, and I've created a timeline already called dialogue selects. Hop in there, paste them, group them together. And now I know that from day one, I have all of the important moments where someone was talking and saying something interesting. So then I could, if you wanted to stay even more organized, you can add a marker, say blue, and we'll go in there and say day 1, make the duration 10, and we drag this out. And now I know that I have day 1's dialogue selects all in a timeline. Anything that was important that was said will be in this timeline. So when I'm working on my edit, if I remember that something was shot on day 1 and someone said something special, I can come back in here and I have day 1 selects. So then I can go back to my dailies. For the next category, go select clips with color teal, copy those. Go to my catalog selects, ski action selects, paste, group those together, and now I have all my ski action in one spot. So you can do this for all of your dailies, go through every single day and start cataloging all of your selects. A similar process for interviews. I sort each interview by character's master interview. And in this case, I just have it set up as a template. So it's character A, master interview, but you would potentially do like Eric Bradshaw, master interview, which it was the main character in Mountain Turks. Whatever your main character's names or your interview names are, head in there. I've done a similar process where I've gone through and pulled the selects, favorite quotes that I like. And here's where this process is really, really powerful, is now once you're going through your interviews, you can start pulling interview selects and cataloging interview selects based on ideas and themes and story elements that you want to explore in your documentary. So as you become more familiar with the subjects in your documentary, the themes, you'll realize there's different subjects that people have talked about throughout your film, and you'll create bins and categories for these subjects. So for example, for Mountain Turks, if memory serves, I believe I had one bin where it was any interview quote that related to the community that was built around these huts. I had one category for any quote that was based around Eric's history in the mountains when he was younger, any backstory about him. I had another one based around how the club started. So that way you can have multiple characters all doing different interviews, and you can start gathering all those quotes into different places. That way, when I'm building out the story, say I'm building out a scene about how the Mountain Turk Club started, I can then go into a timeline where I know every single quote in here is about this theme, and now I can just start picking and choosing and flying through my edit. You can even take this one step further if you really want to, and you can go into, if you select the timeline here and you click this little icon up here, you can actually transcribe the audio from that timeline. And this will help you even further because then you can quickly read through your interviews. You don't have to go through and listen to every quote. You can quickly scroll through, even search the text, and you'll be able to find your interview quote that you're looking for. Sweet. So now you have a transcription of all of your interview quotes that all relate to how the Mountain Turk Club started. So rather than having to go through and listen to all of your quotes as you're looking for a piece of dialogue to throw into your edit, you can actually search this, read through it really quickly. You know, say I want to find something where he mentions New Zealand. I can search, and there he mentions New Zealand. Another way that people like to work within these timelines, I've done this before, is by adding markers. You can add markers to the timeline, and you can give it a name and some notes. So you could say Antarctic history, mom's involvement in exploration. So that could be a quick tag, and then now you know what he's talking about. You have a general sense of what he's talking about in that section. And Davinci Resolve actually has this really handy tool where if you go to index, you can actually see your markers here. So you go to index at the top. Sometimes it's set to edit index. You go to markers, and then bam. Antarctic history, mom's involvement in exploration. You can click on that. No matter where you are in the edit, you click on that, it brings you to that point. So you can have a summary of all of the different themes and topics. So that's my workflow in a nutshell. The rest of this template's pretty straightforward, just spots for you to store your graphics, your overlays, titles, logos, your music, your sound effects, and then a section for all your different exports, because as you finish a project, you're naturally exporting rough cuts, different versions for color, all that stuff. So this is a fairly, I would say, comprehensive folder structure and project structure and workflow for longer films. Like I said early on, you can pare this down to something simpler. Maybe you don't need all these folders. Maybe you just want camera originals and stock footage. So you can delete those, make a new template, and you're good to go. At this point, we've cataloged all of our selects. We've gone through all of our dailies. We understand our footage. We've watched everything. We've sorted things into our different categories. You'll have such a good understanding of your footage at this point that once you start diving into that first rough cut, things will just flow easier. As soon as you have an idea, you know where that footage is, you can test it out, because that's what editing's all about. It's all about just trial and error, testing things out, playing around, being agile, not overthinking things, and this workflow will help you get there. So if you think you'd find this structure useful for you, it would help you with your film projects, head to the description. There's a download link. All you have to do is join the free tier of my Patreon. It's totally free. You can download this resource and start using it for your projects. Well, I know that was a bit of a long video, a bit boring at times, but hopefully that helps you. Hopefully that gives you some insight into how to stay organized, how to keep the process flowing when you have a massive project. Like I said, Mountain Turks was 5 terabytes of data. It's a lot of footage. It's a lot of days. It's a lot of stuff to go through, come through, keep track of. And I've developed this system because it's how my brain works. It's how I like to edit, and it's what helps me stay in that editing flow as much as possible. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. It really helps me grow the channel, get this information out to other budding filmmakers such as yourself. And if you're interested in more documentary tutorials, feel free to hit that subscribe, stick around. I'm growing this channel slowly but surely, and I want to keep offering up good advice, but also, you know, little goodies and templates and things like that that can help you where I remember getting stuck as a new filmmaker. So let me know in the comments if there's any burning questions you have, anything that you're currently stuck on, or anything you need help with. I'd love to help you out there, and we can all get better at this filmmaking thing together. Sweet. I'll see you guys in the next video. Later.